Today we're going to do multiplying and dividing radicals again, but this is day 2 because we are going to be multiplying binomials that have radicals and then we're simplifying them. And then we're also going to rationalize denominators that have a binomial that has a radical. Okay, so let's start. So we're going to always make sure that we simplify. That's just like a little reminder. So when we have binomials that are multiplying, we distribute. So we're going to get 3 times 2, which is 6. And then when we multiply this times this, it's outside with outside. So this is going to be 3 times 4, which is 12. And then we only have a 5 inside. Okay, now we're going to take this guy and multiply him through. Now, outside with outside, so 2 times 2 is going to be 4. And we still have radical 5. And then here, outside with outside, that's going to get me an 8, and then inside with inside, that's going to give me 25. But we know that that's 5 times 5, right? So we're going to simplify everything. So this is 5 times 5. So 5 comes out and makes this 40. So you can see that the 6 and the 40 are in common, so that's 46. And then the 12 radical 5 and the 4 radical 5 are in common. So that's going to be 16 of the radical 5s, and we're done. Okay, let's look at example 2. This is very similar to the last one, right? So we're going to just distribute. 4 times 6 is going to be 24. 4 times 5 radical 6. The 4 times the 5, because they're outside with outside. So that's 20. And then we just have radical 6. And then we're going to take the negative 3 radical 6. So the 6 and the negative 3 are both outside, so that's going to give you negative 18, and then we'll have a radical 6. And then negative 3 radical 6 times 5 radical 6 is going to be, negative 15, and then radical 36. But we know that this is 6 times 6, so a 6 comes out. So we would take 15 times 6, and we would get 90. So now we have 24 and plus 20 radical 6 minus 18 radical 6 minus 90. And then these are like terms. So we're going to end up with 66, but a negative, right? Because we have more negative than positive. And then we have 20 radical 6 plus negative 18 radical 6. So that will give us a 2 radical 6, and we're done. Okay, so let's talk conjugates for a minute. So conjugates are like, if I have a plus b radical c, I'm going to have a minus b radical c. We use conjugates because if we have something and then times the conjugate or the opposite sign, we're only going to do the opposite sign. We're not doing the opposite of the whole thing. When we do this, we end up to get a squared minus ab plus ab. You can see how that middle term just goes away, and then minus b squared. Well, when I square a radical, the radical goes away. And so we use conjugates a lot to make a radical go away that's in the denominator that has a binomial. So let's look. So if I have 5 minus radical 3, the conjugate would be 5 plus radical 3, right? And if I have 8 plus radical 7, my conjugate would be 8 minus radical 7. So if we're talking a conjugate, we're just changing that middle sign, okay? And when do we use these? Well, we just talked about it. If I have 3 minus radical 6 on the bottom, and I just multiplied by radical 6, this would just become 3 times radical 6 minus 6. Well, that didn't help my radical at all. That's why when we have a binomial, we need to multiply by a binomial. And the binomial that we need to multiply by is the conjugate. So if I have 3 minus radical 6, I'm going to use 3 plus radical 6. But whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. And I'm just going to rewrite the top until I simplify, just to make sure that there's nothing in common. Because when we go to simplify, we break them down anyways, or we factor them. So let's leave them factored first. Now, we could go through the bottom and do it really quickly. It's just a squared minus b squared. But if you don't see that, you can take the a's and multiply them to get a squared, which is 9. And then plus 3 radical 6. And then minus 3 radical 6. And you can see how these are just going to go away. and then we're going to have a negative times a positive. So we're going to square that last one, but we're going to have minus the square of the last one, which is just 6. So 9 minus 6 is just 3. Well, now, before we multiply, we just look at these outsides, right? These are not, they don't have anything in common. So we could either leave it like it is right now, or we could write it 12 plus 4 radical 6 over 3. So if you're having a hard time knowing that this is just a squared minus b squared, right, then you can multiply it all out like this. But if you can just do this and get 9 minus 6, well, you can just go straight to the 3. So it's completely up to you. But remember, conjugate is not opposite, okay? And I hope this helps. Take care.